Great Moments in Democrat History.
This is Great Moments in Democrat History. Let's go back to 1971. Her name was Romana Acosta Banuelos, the first Hispanic treasurer of the United States. The daughter of poor Mexican immigrants, she created a multi-million-dollar business, Ramona's Mexican Food Products. She was a Republican, so the Democrat Party used the U.S. Immigration Service to raid her factory to hurt her nomination chances for the treasurer. She was later vindicated when a Senate investigation ruled that the raid was carried out solely to cause embarrassment to President Nixon, who had nominated her, and to try to sink her chances to be confirmed as treasurer. This is one of the first examples of the left's disdain for Hispanics who don't fall for the Democrat platform of dependence. Just a few years ago, the Democrats forced the first Hispanic Attorney General in the history of the United States, Alberto Gonzales, to resign by pounding him in the press for months over a legal action he took by firing 9 U.S. attorneys. They didn't stop there when attacking conservative Hispanics. President Bush nominated Miguel Estrada, who would have been the first Hispanic on the prestigious U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, which was to be his springboard to be the first Hispanic on the Supreme Court. The Democrats' racism for Latinos that aren't on welfare or illegals shone through once again, and Estrada was even denied an up or down vote by a Democrat filibuster. He eventually withdrew his name from further consideration, and the message from Democrats to Hispanics that don't toe the liberal line was clear. If you are a conservative Latino, we will bury you. Democrats. Politics over country. 1978. Another great moment in Democrat history. Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader and last week's guest on Ascend Conservatism, was in the pocket of the mob. Admitted mobster Joe Augusto was caught on tape by the FBI in early 1978 and was quoted as saying, "We have Mr. Cleanface in our pocket," unquote. After his arrest, Augusto told the FBI that Mr. Cleanface was indeed Harry Reid. The current Senate leader was gaming commissioner in Las Vegas at the time and approved gambling licenses to known mafia figures and fronts, even with the objections from the other gaming board members. And in typical Democrat cover-up style, Jimmy Carter's Department of Justice acquitted Reid of any wrongdoing with a wink and a nod. Democrats, crooked to the core. Another great moment for Democrats happened on the floor of the House on September 29, 2008. Nancy Pelosi, who was the Speaker of the House at the time and was the Democrats' pick to be third in line to be president, said this.
"I don't know what was so great about the Depression, but that's the name they give it."
This woman that has been entrusted with the 2007 budget process, health care reform under Obama, as well as hundreds of laws coming out of D.C. from 2007 to 2011 is, with all due respect, dumb as a stump. But Democrats have different priorities. Democrats, twisted liberal ideology over intelligence. Now, President Obama has many great moments in Democrat history, and this is just one. 2012. Obama's budget loses on Capitol Hill 513 to 0. When you're talking about epic fail, it can't get worse than this. Obama is on track to be the first two-term president in history to never have his own budget pass the House and Senate and to be enacted into law. His fiscal year 2013 budget got voted down 99 to 0 in the democratically controlled Senate and 414 to 0 in the House. Even left-wing nutjobs like former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was head of the Democrat National Committee, voted against Obama's fiscally repugnant budget, an embarrassment that might bother someone who actually cared about this country's citizens who are suffering. Another historic Democrat disaster in a long line for President Obama. Great moment in racist Democrat history. And no, we're not talking about when Democrats formed the Ku Klux Klan, or the time that Democrat President Lyndon Johnson said that with his war on poverty that was just to make blacks dependent on government handouts, when he said he will have those N-words voting Democrat for 200 years. We're talking about 2008. So-called tolerant Democrats and gay rights activists terrorize African Americans in their place of worship by screaming the N-word at them. During the 2008 Prop 8 campaign to ban gay marriage in California, gay rights activists used violence, fear, and intimidation and screaming the N-word at blacks at a rally in Westwood and all over Southland black churches. While Democrats claim to be tolerant and respectful of minorities, Democrats always revert to their KKK past if African Americans stray from the Democrat plantation, whether it be on the issue of gay marriage or if they just dare to hold conservative views. They love you as long as you toe the Democrat Party line. Don't, and they call you the N-word or an Uncle Tom. Democrats, racist when needed. Now let's go back to a favorite of us and conservatism, great moments in Democrat history, starring the slimiest Senate Majority Leader ever, Harry Reid. Supposedly a senator from Nevada and supposedly looking out for Nevadans' interests in D.C., he's more about personal wealth gain and distracting the country from the last 7 disastrous years he has been the Senate leader. For 7 long, miserable years, Reid has been the last stop for every piece of legislation coming from Washington, or, in his burying of bipartisan jobs bills coming from the House, legislation not coming from Washington. These 2 great moments are from this year for Harry Reid. Now, to put it into perspective, technically, the recession ended 5 years ago, but today, Harry Reid's constituents are still suffering while Harry gets richer and distracts with phony issues. Nevada's unemployment is the 3rd highest in the country at 8.5%. They are 3rd highest in home foreclosures, and Nevada has 24% of its children living in poverty. And what does Reid see as priorities in his position as Senate leader? He uses his position to get richer by trying to steal grazing land of a rancher in Nevada so he can make a deal with a Chinese solar company that his son just so happens to work with. And he attempted this with one of his ex-aides that he planted in the Bureau of Land Management to make his illegal land grabs easier. When the public was in an uproar after the conservative media exposed this dirty deal, he backed off. Now, just as recently as a few weeks ago, Reid tried to distract the country from his abysmal record, Obama's abysmal economic record of minus 2.8% GDP last quarter, by causing a fuss about the name of the Washington Redskins football team. With Nevadans suffering, Reid cares more about his pocketbook and distracting the public from the Democrats' abysmal failures. Democrats, crooked and devious to the core. Great moments in Democrat foreign policy history. In 2012, our American embassies fly the black flag of Al-Qaeda. After promising to repair relations with the Muslim world, President Obama's foreign policy is an unmitigated disaster. He now has a lower approval rating in the Arab world than the much vilified George W. Bush. The ultimate disgrace was when, in cities all around the Middle East and on the anniversary of 9/11, United States flags were taken down from our embassies and replaced with the Al-Qaeda flag. As the first Democrat bumblehead Jimmy Carter let radical Islam take root in Iran in 1979, Obama, as usual, has to one-up the peanut farmer by letting a caliphate take root in the Middle East. Democrats, foreign policy disasters. Just last week, President Barack Obama achieved another dubious great moment in Democrat history. While he claimed to be a constitutional law professor, he was actually a guest lecturer, and a bad one at that, who was disliked by the other real professors. Obama has a problem remembering the Constitution. After only 5.5 years in office, he has set an all-time record of failure. No president in the history of the United States has lost 9, count them 9, unanimous Supreme Court decisions. All the liberals on the highest court, which include 2 of his appointees, voted against his tyrannical power grabs a record 9 times. While lying has become a second nature to President Obama, and we all know that now that he has won the PolitiFact's Lie of the Year, we remember what he said back in 2007 as a senator. Obama blasted then-President Bush for his use of executive orders and said,
I taught constitutional law for 10 years. I take the Constitution very seriously. The biggest problems that we're facing right now have to do with George Bush trying to bring more and more power into the executive branch and not go through Congress at all. And that's what I intend to reverse when I'm President of the United States of America.
Oh, really? That's why you lost 9 unanimous Supreme Court decisions like no other president in history? By trying to subvert the Constitution to get yourself more power than deemed in the Constitution you supposedly respect? Democrats, the truth is always subjective when it comes to their priorities. And that concludes this week's installment of Great Moments in Democrat History.